Hi, I'm Sam Candy. Welcome to Sustain Talks. Today, I'm joined by Becky Gordon, Regional Sustainability Manager at Interface, who won a UN award for their work on carbon and who has delivered their Mission Zero commitment in part by becoming the first global flooring manufacturer to sell all products as carbon neutral across their full life cycle. Very interesting. Hello, Becky. How are you?
Hi Sam, thanks for having me. I'm really good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, really good. Good to have you here. Why don't you start? I always like to start with an introduction, and very excited to hear more about Interface and what you've done. But tell us a little bit more about you and your background and the background of Interface.
Yeah, so for myself, I'm the Regional Sustainability Manager for the UK, Ireland and Middle East. And I've worked for Interface for over 12 years now, so sort of a long time, and I've worked in lots and lots of different departments across the company. My role now as a regional sustainability manager covers lots of different things, and that's why I love it. There's internal and external elements. So internally, I help with training and engagement around sustainability. So how can I ensure that sustainability remains a core part of everybody's role within our commercial team? Make sure that the sales team, marketing, concept design, and customer experience teams all have what they need to include sustainability in their day-to-day work. Externally, I help our customers meet their sustainability targets, but I also try and help with the push to make the industry more sustainable. So this year, a lot of my communication focus has been around carbon, and I've done a lot of presentations to architects, designers, main contractors and end user clients on the topic.
Brilliant, brilliant. I know I've read a lot about Interface, and funnily enough, a lot of my interviews that I do, people mention Interface as a company when it comes to sustainability, and it runs through, I think that it runs through Interface's blood almost. What does it mean at Interface? Where does it come from, the sustainability messaging?
I think precisely that. It means everything to Interface. I think, you know, we've been doing this for a long time, since the mid-90s, and it's a core part of everything that we do since then. You know, when you look at the stakeholders that we have as a business, we class the environment as one of our stakeholders. So it means that any decision that Interface are making, we have to consider the environment in terms of what the outcome of that decision is, which means it's a lot easier for us to integrate, you know, the environment and sustainability into our day-to-day decisions. So I think it goes beyond kind of a sustainability team or a few individuals looking at sustainability, and it goes through everyone within our factories, within our sales teams, marketing. Everyone has a sort of interest or a focus at least on how their role can impact our bigger missions towards sustainability. So yeah, it means everything to us, and it's, you know, the reason I'm in sustainability is because of Interface. When I first started 12 years ago, I didn't really know much about sustainability. And it's through being at the company and learning that big, you know, global organizations can actually do good things and have a really big impact that got me interested in sustainability and made me move sort of into my sustainability role.
Yeah, you mentioned impact. I mean, it's more of just a sustainability impact. It's a social impact as a business, and you know, it comes in your core values. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think when people talk about sustainability, it's really easy to think of sustainability as just going and planting some trees or doing something environmental, but ultimately it's all linked. Social and environmental sustainability are both really important, and sometimes you can do some really cool things by addressing both. You know, we've got core values around, you know, being genuine and innovating, and, you know, generally being, you know, good people to work with. And we've got programs where we've pushed that social side of sustainability. So Interface, we're a key partner in establishing the Networks program, which recycles old discarded fishing nets into yarn for carpet tile. So we worked with Aquafil, one of our yarn suppliers, and ZSL, so London Zoo. And we worked with them on a program called Networks, which works with local communities in the Philippines and Cameroon to get these nets out of the ocean, provide an income for those families, and ultimately make their environments a bit better. We've also got a programme with our end of life of our carpet tiles, where we try and find second homes essentially for that product. And often it's with housing associations or charities. So people that maybe wouldn't be able to afford to have decent flooring for their homes can have carpet tiles that might have come from a big bank's office or something like that. So it's about thinking about the environmental side of sustainability and the social side of sustainability, and wherever possible, trying to address both of those at the same time, because ultimately that will have the biggest impact and also will probably be more sustainable longer term as well.
Yeah, that's fabulous. And it really is about, thinking about how you can give back and the different communities that you can work with. And I think that's where that social impact comes into, into being sustainable as well. You have a mission to zero. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that is and what you had to do to get there?
Yeah, I think in terms of how it all started at Interface, we were founded by an American guy called Ray Anderson in the 70s. And he was a typical businessman who wanted to go to work every day and earn money and didn't really have consideration about the environmental sustainability. But in the sort of early 90s, he was asked a question by a customer around, what is your company doing for the environment? And he didn't have an answer for that customer at that point in time, but he wanted to find out more and he wanted to read up on it. So he did. He went away and he did his research, looked into the topic of sustainability. And he had what he describes as his spear in the chest moment, his epiphany, where he realized that the way we conducted business, taking from the earth, making stuff and then wasting it, just wasn't the future of business. He saw business slightly differently, that we needed to work in a more circular way. We needed to have business that benefited earth and society. And he also acknowledged that he probably wasn't the best placed person to work out how we do that or where we go. So he assembled a team of external experts in sustainability and biomimicry and asked them what our mission should be, what direction we should be going in. And they came up with Mission Zero, which was our aim to have no negative impact on the planet by 2020. So effectively think of Mission Zero as our mission to do less bad. Carpet tiles are a dirty industry historically, really carbon intensive, really bad for the planet. And it was about changing that and doing less and less bad.
Yeah.
So to do that, we needed to lower our impact. But to lower your impact, you need to know what your impact is to start with. So we created a framework and we created measurements, and our ecometrics were born. And our ecometrics is effectively our set of data that we measure annually to track our progress on sustainability. And it allows us to, see how we're doing, see where we're making progress, and see where we need to continue doing more work. And once we had that understanding of where we were as business and which bits of our business had the biggest impact, it was really clear that it was in the products that we make. We make carpet tiles, we make things. So for a manufacturer, it's probably going to be the stuff that you make that is where your biggest impact lies. So we needed to change that model of taking raw materials from the earth, making them in a really inefficient, unsustainable way, and then just allowing stuff to go to landfill without a second thought. We needed to change that. We needed to think more carefully about what materials were going into our product. We needed to think about how we were making those products, how, what energy we're using to assemble those products. And then finally, could we think of an alternative to landfill for end of life of our products? So Mission Zero saw us innovate with, recycled content, switching over to renewable energy where possible, and introducing our re-entry scheme, which I mentioned, which is the take back scheme for old products. And I think one thing to say about Mission Zero is that it's a really bold goal in the mid-90s. Nobody else was really talking about sustainability, especially not like big business people. And it was, a really big, audacious, crazy goal. But it pushed us, and it ensured that, you know, we had a focus, we had something almost unthinkable to aim for. And I think that was really, really important.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think back to 10 years ago, I was the director of Sustain magazine, and I think back to then, and it was very different then to how it is now. You know, now you can look up at the touch of a button, you can read so many different papers about it, but back then it wasn't really to hand. So to do that then, and to set that then, and even things like Mission Zero, that, you know, now everyone talks about zero carbon, but, you know, doing it back then, it puts you way ahead. And you created the first carbon negative floor tile, right? I assume by doing all of that.
Yeah, so earlier this year we launched our Embodied Beauty collection, which contains within it 3 ranges which are carbon negative, cradle to gate. And, you know, in terms of how we got there, as you can imagine, a lot of innovation and pioneering had to happen in terms of, you know, what our products could do. So if you think back to the mid-90s, just for a bit of perspective, the carbon footprint of our carpet tiles then was around 20 kilograms of CO2 per square meter. So really carbon intensive product. And through all our work with Mission Zero, we'd got that down to about 10 kilograms of CO2. So we'd about halved it. But then with creating a carbon negative product, if we think about how we constructed our product, the materials that we used for our products in sort of normally, there's no way we could achieve carbon negative with what we were using to create our products. So we had to reimagine almost the whole supply chain in terms of, you know, where are we sourcing these materials from? What materials can we use that we've maybe not used historically? So historically, all our carpet tiles have had a bitumen backing, which is quite a carbon intensive backing. It's not very easy to recycle. So could we move away from a bitumen backing? Is that a way that we could reduce this carbon footprint and even think about getting carbon negative? And that's exactly what we did. So we looked at the backing and we introduced a new backing called Sequest Bio X, which is a biocomposite. So it contains, you know, bio oils and resins that store carbon. So effectively using the product as a store for carbon. And that backing, alongside a new proprietary yarn, allowed us to create a product that cradle to gate was carbon negative. Something which, you know, 10 years ago was completely unthinkable to us. So yeah, super proud of it.
You should be. It's fascinating. You've been, as you say, you've been in this for 12 years, and you know, you must have seen how things have changed from floodings and forest fires. You know, it seems like you can look at the news every day and see something that's impacting the planet. For you, having gone through that journey and being more aware of it, I guess, for being in it for a longer time than most people, how urgent do you think that the climate crisis is right now?
It's critical. Like, it's, you know, it's the biggest issue facing the planet. And I think that, you know, COVID over the last couple of years has put into perspective just how disruptive things can be and how we don't have control over everything. And it's, you know, it doesn't take a lot to disrupt the supply chains that we have, you know, when it comes to food and medicines and all that kind of stuff. It has highlighted the, you know, the differences around the globe and just what disruption can come. And that was from a pandemic. What we see with climate change is going to be potentially, you know, much more widespread, much more devastating to the planet. And I think that it's not a question of should we be doing something. It's not even a question of like when we should be doing something. It's a question of like, what should we be doing? How should we do it? And let's get on with it. I think there's, you know, there's no other way of putting it. And I think when we look at Interface and what we've done over the last few years is we've shifted from Mission Zero, which was about doing less bad, to a new mission called Climate Take Back, which is about how can we actually do good? How can we doing less bad is great. We need to do it. There's no question we need to do less bad. But how can we actually do good? How can business be a positive thing? How can business help the planet, help society? And I think that's an important shift that has happened within our business, but also it needs to kind of ripple out and happen elsewhere as well. And it's not to say that, you know, we've got all the answers and we're doing everything right, but it's that shift of going, let's stop thinking about doing less bad. Let's continue everything we're doing with that, but let's focus now on how to have positive impact, how we can push that even further, how, you know, carbon negative carpet tiles, for example, like how can we rethink things differently? And with climate take back, it all came because, you know, it's clear that the world is different now to what it was in the mid-90s. The weather disasters and stuff like that we see on a daily, weekly basis are becoming much more prevalent. Like, they're all over the news every week. It's everywhere. Then you've got people like David Attenborough bringing conversations around the environment and carbon into people's living rooms as they sit and eat their tea on an evening. And you've got Greta out there, like, and loads of other young sort of climate activists inspiring generations to actually make change and do things. So the world's very different now to what it was then. And, you know, we recognise that we needed a new mission that reflected that looked beyond doing less bad and actually did good. And the ultimate aim of climate takeback is that we are a carbon negative enterprise by 2040. So it's about doing good. How can we not just think about stopping doing the bad stuff? Let's think about what good we can be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of businesses probably think that it's too big a mission for them. But what kind of changes, simple changes even, can businesses make?
I think it's a tricky question because all businesses are different. All businesses have different impacts. And I think that's one really important thing you can do if you have the time and resources, is to look into what impact your business is actually having. You know, which bits do you need to address first? Because the answer is probably very different for a manufacturer in comparison to a service industry or a hotel or, you know, an airline, for example. They're all going to have very, very different impacts and different areas where they need to focus. But I think that looking at Interface's journey and how we've done things, I think that one of the most important things you can do is to empower your employees to try and make changes, because ultimately the person at the top isn't necessarily always the person that knows how to fix everything. It's the people doing the job day to day that know how they can make their job more sustainable. And I think Interface have had a lot of innovations and a lot of progress by listening to what the employees think they could change, what they could do better, challenging our different factories around the world to become more sustainable. So they're almost in competition with each other to do as the best that they can. And I think that, you know, you'll then get people in procurement thinking about the supply chain and how they could maybe purchase things differently. You'll have people in the sales team thinking how they could approach things differently in terms of conversations with their customers. And you get people in finance thinking they can maybe do things slightly differently as well. And I think that if you empower your employees to think about it, you're probably going to get the most interesting solutions.
I think we're starting to see more or less, I'd say, from speaking to many different industries, that we are seeing that in tenders. So you're starting to see questions around sustainability. So everybody does have to be affected within a business because it's coming out in the tenders. So if someone's not thinking about it, then they're going to be left behind. You've got a lot of experience in sustainability, but if somebody was just starting out, they're just getting started, what's the thing that you would the advice that you would give them?
So one thing I think is really important is that leadership can come from anywhere within an organization. So just because you're not at the top of the tree making those decisions doesn't mean that you can't, you know, lead and inspire those around you. So if you're starting sustainability and you're in a company and you feel that you're not high up enough to make decisions and push the organization in a certain direction, on an organizational chart, yeah, probably that's the case. But you can still inspire people, you can still push those around you, and you can still lead. And I think that's really important, especially for, we've got lots and lots of young people really, going to make huge changes in sustainability, but they're obviously starting lower down in companies. And just because you're not at the top doesn't mean that you can't change things. You can inspire and you can lead. And I think the more people that we've got leading within organizations from all different areas, again, the better it will be.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that as well. We've been obviously in strange times the last year and a half, 2 years even. What's the most important lesson that you've learned this last year and a half?
So for me, it's that people need people. Like, we've all been working from home. I still am working from home. And we get personally, I get a lot of work done working from home. It's great from a productivity point of view, but you miss that connection of real people talking to real people, because you don't have, some things you want to talk about aren't worthy of a Teams call or a Zoom meeting. Some things are just, you're sat next to someone in the office, or you're making a cup of tea and your colleague comes into the kitchen and you have a conversation about something, and it can lead to really exciting, cool ways of doing things, or new ideas, new thinking. And for me personally, the last couple of years with COVID, that's kind of been missing. And I think that going back into the office now occasionally, it's been brilliant, and a real realization for me that is super, super important. Yes, I want flexibility. I think a lot of people want flexibility in how they're working, but that people to people contact is really, really, really important.
Yeah, so it is that you need that balance, really, don't you, of a bit of both, because the time that you have at home, you can get so much done, as you said, but actually even with live events, seeing people in person and connecting and networking with people, that's the bit that I've really missed. So Interface has done so much. You must still keep giving yourself goals though. So what are your goals for what's left of 2021 and into 2022?
I think it's continuing a lot of what we're doing. So we obviously want to keep innovating with using carbon negative materials to make more carbon negative products. How quickly we'll have more, I'm not sure, but I think that's a really, really big, important piece of what we're doing. We also, a few weeks ago, announced that we now have a science-based target. So we have a target around carbon to reduce our Scope 1, Scope 2 and Scope 3 emissions by 50%. And a lot of what our work over the next sort of 12 to 18 months will be working on how we achieve what we've set out to do with our science-based target. So lots of interesting things to come, a lot around carbon, as you would expect. But yeah, no, looking forward to getting going with it, Tom.
Good. And I definitely look forward to hearing more at a later date. My final question, I always like to ask this, but who in sustainability inspires you? Who should people be following and listening to?
So my answer on this is quite a personal one. I had a colleague who is now the co-CEO of Friends of the Earth, Miriam Turner, and she was a person who worked at Interface. She headed up our co-innovation team. And for me, she was inspiring for a number of reasons. She was a woman who had got to a really senior position within the organization, but she was very genuine and herself. Like, she was a woman who had done well just being her, which a lot of time you don't necessarily see in business. And it was great to see and really inspiring. I thought that the way she looked at sustainability, the way she spoke about it, was different to how I'd heard other people speak about it before. It was about achieving the goals we wanted to achieve, but telling the story in the right way to business colleagues to help them understand why it was important. And I think she really inspired me to move into sustainability. So from a personal point of view, it was Miriam. But I think there are so many people out there now. And a few years ago, Greta came to Bristol, where I live, and I went to hear her talk. And listening to Greta was great. But I was almost more taken aback by the other young people that shared the stage with her. The confidence of some of those individuals to stand up in front of thousands of people and be so bold and so kind of determined and so clear in what they were asking for and what they wanted people to do was amazing. And I came away like sort of quite taken aback and shaken by it, really. It was really moving to see. And I think that for me, that's incredibly exciting, because it's a generation of people coming through, sort of not necessarily wanting to compromise, just wanting, this is what we want, this is what we want, how we want to do it, and this is what we need. And I think that we need that as a world, and I think that was great. So a lot of those younger activists that are coming through are super interesting.
Yeah, well, you've inspired me today, and I really enjoyed listening to this story and taking some fantastic points from it. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much, Becky, and I look forward to hearing more from you in the future. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been really nice.
All right, take care.